Well, I really hope this kind of sets a precedent for bands. It's okay to wait 5, 6 years to put out your next album so long as you are coming to the forefront with an outstanding record. So let's dive into it. Exul by Obliviscaris, and I believe it's Obliviscaris. I think that NE is like the, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, Ni. I've also heard it be like new or nai or something along those lines. Anyway, I'm going to be saying Obliviscaris, so if it bothers you, whatever. They're an Australian progressive metal band, and man, they really made a splash in the progressive death metal landscapes. I was first introduced to them with their 2017 album of Urn. It's one of my favorite death metal records of that year. And it made me go back and listen to their past discography with Citadel, I think, in 2014, and Portals of Eye in 2012. And what really made these guys stand out was the incorporation and the use of a violin as one of their leading charges, like one of their leading instruments. One of the things that I also really, really enjoy is just the flavor of these boys in terms of the death metal, progressive metal landscape. Their tracks go into the 8, 9, 10 minute mark very, very easily. They have both clean and harsh vocals. And in fact, two different people are taking care of those. Mark Campbell, who writes all the lyrics, does all the harsh vocals. And Tim Charles, who does the violins, does all the clean vocals. And I like the fact that both of them take the same amount of time so that one isn't necessarily overshadowing the other. Both share the limelight very, very well and very consistently as well. They know when to utilize one and when to utilize the other very, very effectively. And, I applaud them for that as well. Rounding out this band, you've got Mark Kelvins on rhythm guitars, Benjamin Barrett on lead guitars, and Benjamin, specifically on this album, is given a lot of space to really develop and showcase and shine his lead guitar. There are a number of amazing guitar licks and guitar solos on this record that I haven't quite heard from the band to this extent, in terms of giving him space to just go. And rounding off this band, and the latest addition, is Martiano Gatteronti, I think is how you pronounce his name, on bass. And I want to really, really applaud Martiano on his bass work. Getting flavors of Martin Mendez from Opeth within the Still Life or the Blackwater Park kind of aspect of it. I think he brings a brilliant and a fantastic dynamic to the band and to the songs on here. He's not just a bass player that follows the rhythm or one that follows the lead or rhythm guitars. He's not just in the background to kind of fluff up the song. He's there to provide its own personality and its own direction. There's a lot of moments on here that I think, man, this sounds like a Chris Squire lick, where Chris Squire wouldn't necessarily just follow the rhythm. He would create the drive. The rest of the band, I think, are playing at their top tier. This is the best music that I've heard from Obliviscaris yet, and the album itself is such a delight. It's 6 tracks across 52 minutes, so it's a perfect length in terms of this style of death metal music. The album opens up with one hell of a banger with Equus, I think it is, really solidifying that throwdown. It's 12 and a half minutes, and where this track goes in terms of it ebbs and flows, it really opens up the soundscapes and really shows that this band has matured. It's learned a hell of a lot from Urn, and they're moving the sounds forward. They're not just repeating what they put out last time, which is so easy to do for a progressive metal band. It's so easy just to kind of fall into those ruts that they've put down, that they've worked so successfully. These guys take that and then develop it even further. You're not listening to a whole new band, but at the same time, you're not treading the same ground that you have before. The album then goes into parts 1 and 2 of Misericordi, I think it is. Misericordi, parts 1 and 2, As the Flesh Falls, and Anatomy of Quiescence. It provides probably about, just over 16, 17 minutes worth of music. This is really laying down some of my favorite styles of progressive death metal, where at one hand, they build up the atmosphere and they build up the vibes. You know, it's very blast beats. It's very, at some points, monochromatic within its flavors, within its presentation. But then once you have those soaring soundscapes within the violins and the lead guitars, you know, you have that color beginning to bleed through. You have those, a bouquet of different flavors that kind of disrupt the ideas that were originally being put down. What I particularly love, though, is those builds, those climbs. And we find that on the second part of this track, the third part, where the first half really is this massive, massive build. And I cannot wait to listen to this live, where it's this massive build, this massive climb. The band is opening themselves up and just allowing that rhythm section, that big build for this album. And then it comes into the second part of this band, where they just basically take that momentum that they've built and play with it even further. You know, they've reached the plateau, they've reached the crest of the wave, and now they're using that to kind of slide down. One of the best music that I've heard this year, and one of the best music that I've heard from a death metal band in quite some time. Love how they were able to use that. Then we come into the second half of this album with Cespire, I believe it is. And Cespire might be my favorite single track on here at just over 10 minutes. The violin aspects on here. The last two tracks are kind of the weaker moments on this album, if I'm being honest. Growl is fine. It's, you know, got a little bit more of a lifeline to it. I love that power, that draw. The final piece is kind of I don't want to say the weakest point, but it's the shortest piece. It's 3.5 minutes-ish. Anhedonia is fine. You know, it closes off the album quite well, but I was really hoping for like a big swelling excitement. You know, I was really hoping for a big powerhouse, and instead, you know, we just get a really nice closing piece. That's serviceable. That's fine. So yeah, in the end, Exul from Neo Obliviscaris was a fantastic treat. You know, this is probably their most mature, their most sophisticated, and their most well-rounded album as well. On past albums, you know, they would have these really soaring soundscapes, and I would love it, but there would always be like moments that it was either like they could have trimmed it off, they could have cut, they could have, you know, chopped off some of the fat, and we probably wouldn't have lost too much. Exul, I feel, is very tight, very gripping, and keeps me intrigued throughout the entire runtime. I had a blast with this one. This is one that I've been coming back to quite a bit. And it is in the showrunner at the moment for my favorite metal album of this year. You know, this is one that I am really excited every time I sit down to listen to it. You know, it's got its teeth in me. You know, on so many of my other reviews, I keep saying, you know, there wasn't anything to draw me back. You know, it was kind of like a slog to get through. This one's definitely the opposite. I'm looking forward every time I go down to sit and listen to this one. So yeah, I will say Exul from Neo Obliviscaris is one I would absolutely pick up in physical format. This one is one that I wouldn't miss if you're a fan of the death metal, if you're a fan of the harsh vocals, if you're a fan of technical, more symphonic, progressive metal. You're really going to dig this. This is also a really great entry point to the band as well. If you haven't heard Neo Obliviscaris before, definitely start here. And if you're a longtime fan, I can't see you being disappointed with this one. I really think this is an album for all people. So yeah, that's a recommendation for me. Go and check it out, and I hope you do. And that's it. What did you guys think about Exul from Neo Obliviscaris? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, please let me know by commenting down below. And yeah, I think that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.